Travis Reier, the BamaOnline.com staff, checking in outside Friday's practice at the University of Alabama. The Crimson Tide in full pads for the second practice in a row, looking to finish up a 3-practice week before breaking for the Easter weekend. So Alabama back at it this afternoon, a perfect afternoon out on the practice fields at the university, and from an injury standpoint, not a whole lot different than what we've seen the first 3 or 4 practices of spring drills, which is obviously good news for this team. Nothing of note, at least that I saw, that you would want to be aware of. Pretty much what we'd seen to date from that standpoint. And the experimentation, the work with different guys at different positions continues on, although not much newsworthy that we saw in there during the media observation periods. A lot of the things that we've talked about so far through the first 4 practices, 3 or 4 practices of spring drills, still taking place out there this afternoon. Specifically, when you look at the secondary, some of those corners and safeties that are vying for spots, not only in the base package, but certainly in the nickel and dime stuff that Alabama likes to do. Still doing the things that we've seen them do the first few days. Tony Brown, sort of a reserve corner safety, working at one of those sub-package roles this afternoon, along with Maurice Smith. Kendall Sheffield, the redshirt freshman, working with Marlon Humphrey at the left corner position. So getting some work at that spot is the promising young corner who did take the year to try to get a little bigger and stronger. It looks like he's accomplished a lot of that. At the other corner, with Cyrus Jones no longer around, seeing Minkah Fitzpatrick working out there a good bit. But again, a lot of mixing and matching in the secondary right now. The safety positions, a lot of the same going on there, especially with Eddie Jackson limited for spring drills. We're seeing Ronnie Harrison looks to be pretty much a constant back there at the one safety spot, but we've seen Hootie Jones back there. We've seen Deontay Thompson back there. Sean Burgess-Becker, a true sophomore, now, who saw time on mostly special teams as a true freshman last fall, also in that mix. So a lot of competition, again, not just for starting positions in those base packages, but obviously they need a third corner, preferably for the nickel back spot. They need a third safety probably for that money position when they go to 6 defensive backs, and we're still seeing a lot of that going on. The offensive line, pretty much status quo with what we've seen to date. A lot of guys in the mix, as we've talked about through the first 3 or 4 days. Ross Pierce-Baker still getting a look at center, it appears. The dead giveaway for that is the towel. When you see a guy with that towel kind of on his snapping hand side, on his pants belt, that pretty much tells you he's working at center, and Pierce-Baker continued to do that during individual drills today. And again, a lot of guys in the mix. One thing you do notice with a lot of these linemen is the difference in time in the program, and I'm talking about from a physical standpoint, body type, weight, those type of things. You look at a guy like Alphonse Taylor at guard, it's easy to see he's been around for a while. You look at some other guys, some of the younger players, they're still trying to get there physically, which is totally normal for what these guys go through in their development, especially the big guys up front. I did get a chance to spend some time around the outside linebackers, moving back to the defensive side of the ball, and Tosh Lapoy doing his usual enthusiastic job with those players. And the emphasis on detail is incredible, watching those guys just go through what would seem to be the most simple of drills. They get no passes. Everything has to be done correctly. And you're seeing that from the veterans, Ryan Anderson, Tim Williams, those guys that have been around are really seeming to take the lead up front in a lot of those drills, and they're looking very good doing it. But I'll tell you, some of those younger players, Anthony Jennings, Mecky Brown, who looks to have done a really good job of putting on some weight and maybe strength in the offseason, Christian Miller, they're right there too. I mean, it's a very impressive group, and with that, a guy like Josh McMillan is able to continue to work with those inside linebackers, which he did for another practice this afternoon, spending time again with Jeremy Pruitt. So a very good looking collection of talent, as we talked about, from front to back on the defensive side of the ball. And I'll finish a little bit with the quarterbacks, and just watching those guys out there again today, 1 through 4 in terms of scholarship quarterbacks. I don't know if Alabama's had a quartet that looks as good throwing the football as these 4 guys do. And That includes Jalen Hurts, the true freshman. Now, we'll see where he's at in terms of how much he can take on this early in his career. Need to be fair with him from that standpoint. Still obviously has a lot to learn, but just throwing the football from Cooper Bateman to Blake Barnett, David Cornwell to Hurts, again, 1 through 4, I don't know if they've had that kind of depth, and just throwing it, looking good throwing it. And that was on display today. We saw David Cornwell deliver an absolutely beautiful deep ball to Derek Keefe on a double move, and right behind him, Jalen Hurts did the same thing. We saw Blake Barnett make a beautiful throw to Dalen Charlotte during individual drills. Cooper Bateman more than holding his own, although if you ask me to rank the 4 quarterbacks in terms of just pure passing ability, he might be at the bottom of the list, but he could be the guy that wins the job. But they have 4 guys that can really throw it pretty well right now at the quarterback position. So Charlie Potter will have a practice update for you here very soon on the website at BamaOnline.com. Again, full weekend off for the team as they break for the Easter holiday. Certainly hope you and yours out there have a safe and joyous holiday weekend, and we certainly want to send our deepest condolences to Kevin Turner's family, the former Alabama player who succumbed to his battle with ALS here very recently, and just an all-time great at the university, an individual who showed great resiliency and fight right until the very end. And again, a sad time for University of Alabama football, but want to send along those thoughts and prayers to the Turner family during this difficult time. But we'll be back, obviously, early next week when the Crimson Tide goes back to work on the practice field. This weekend, you got a lot going on around the University of Alabama campus with some other sports. Alabama baseball cranks up a 3-game series with Tennessee tonight at Sewell Thomas Stadium. Going to play 1 game tonight. They made it a double header tomorrow because they're anticipating bad weather on Easter Sunday. So games at 2 and 8 tomorrow at the Joe. If you haven't been out to the new stadium, you need to do it. It's awesome. The weather right now, today and tomorrow, should be perfect. So if you like baseball, a great couple of days to check out the Crimson Tide from that standpoint. And also, obviously, the softball team over at Rhodes Stadium under Patrick Murphy. 3-game series with Missouri. Going to play 2 games tomorrow over there at 2 and 6. Take Sunday off because of the potential for really bad weather. And then finish that series up on Monday. So a lot of things going on in Tuscaloosa this weekend. Again, have a great Easter weekend for you and yours. And we'll talk to you again on Monday afternoon.